Welcome to Deal Talk. I'm Jeffrey Veit. As usual, we're going to talk about avoiding dealer tricks and buying smart so that you can save big when you purchase a car, truck, motorcycle, boat, motorhome, any big-ticket item. What about that last episode? I don't know what you thought about that. Why you shouldn't buy an electric vehicle. I hope you enjoyed it. And although there were about 30 reasons, there are still more, a lot more, reasons to not buy an electric vehicle. This week we're going to skip over electric vehicle news because, I don't know, we kind of overdid it last week's episode, I think. It was all about why not buy one, and there are just tons of reasons. The only thing I will say about EVs this week is that I read many different roadside articles on how to handle it if you run out of juice on the road. Wanted to come up with something for the show to talk about what you do if you ran out of electricity and what other inconvenience it would be. And, you know, the funny thing about those articles was that they all basically had the same answer that would apply in almost every case. Call a wrecker. That's it. Just call a wrecker. No matter what time of night it is, no matter who's with you, if you're alone or with your family, just call a wrecker. Well, I'm sorry, that doesn't work for me. Holy smokes, that alone is enough to make you not want one. Just that one little thing. Looking at crash test results is becoming more and more important. Urban car crash fatalities are up 35% last year. And that's because people are driving faster, for whatever reason, in lieu of the fact that cars and trucks are safer. The danger is greater, so crash tests can mean a lot. The good resale lines have good crash test results usually, but you should look at them on every vehicle when you're going to buy one. I'm telling you, it's a factor. I did not hear much back this week, but I did get one question. Deal Talk, you didn't talk about EVs versus gas maintenance costs. I thought I covered that, but I didn't re-listen to the podcast. I may not have covered it very much. The Tesla salesperson talked about those costs when we went into the dealership. What is the story? Well, that's a great question. Maintenance costs usually follow the price range more expensive, and luxury cars usually cost more to maintain, although I wonder why. The parts aren't any more expensive. Why should you pay more just because it's a luxury vehicle? I think it's because you can. You pay more because you can. Many articles, including my favorite Consumer Report, says EVs are cheaper to maintain. I don't think that's true. I think especially when you get out to the fourth and fifth year, I say they cost more. EVs, no tune-ups, true. No oil change, true. But those things aren't expensive to begin with. You change the oil, let's say every 10,000 miles, and the first 100,000 miles, that would be 10. That would be maybe $800 for all 10 oil changes. But other parts of the vehicle are the same as a gas vehicle. For instance, shocks and tires and brakes and all that stuff is the same on an electric vehicle. None of that's going to be cheaper. As a matter of fact, it's going to be more money on an electric vehicle because electric vehicles weigh a lot more than fossil fuel vehicles because of the battery. And weight is a direct effect, just like it is on a human body, of wearing things out. The heavier you are, the quicker you're going to wear out. The same with your car. The heavier it is, the quicker it's going to wear out if you use the same standard equipment that comes with a vehicle in terms of a gas. So the electric vehicle has the same type of shocks and stuff. The only thing that's really different on an electric vehicle, other than, and those kinds of parts, would be the tires are what they call smooth rotation tires. They just rotate, they'll roll easier. I don't know if that's a big effect or not. I can't really see the difference, but that's what they say. And so that's what they're trying to say is the lower maintenance. That's not lower maintenance. That's baloney. That's going to be more. And if you take the battery issue, even if it's a prorated, you get some prorated on your battery at 4 or 5 years, it's 10 times more than a fossil fuel vehicle. Geez, you could still pay out $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 on a prorated battery. That would be more than all the tune-ups and oil changes for the next 5 cars you'd own. I mean, it's really out of whack. And it just goes to show you when people get confirmationally biased, right? They decide that we'll look for the answer in this news to make it look the way we want it to look. And that's what happens. I think common sense will tell you, just based on the cost of the batteries and the battery usage, that even if there was a difference, it would be so minute. It would be tiny. And now when it comes to the gas and the electricity, right? The electricity charge is about the same as gas, and it'll go up more. As we get more electric vehicles, you think they're going to say, oh, geez, there's more electric vehicles. Let's give them the electricity cheaper. Well, no, the grid's going to get more challenged and they're going to have to charge more. And there's a whole bunch of reasons. I think on a 4 or 5 year term, projected maintenance is going to be significantly more for an electric vehicle in the total picture. That's what I think. So to answer that email, I wasn't going to talk about electric vehicles today, but it was an email question, so I thought I'd bring it up on the podcast. If you like the podcast, please take a couple of minutes and do a review in Apple Podcasts and Google Play or whatever podcast source you use. If you've already done a review, and a lot of you have, I really appreciate it very much. I don't know how I could pay you back, but I really appreciate it. Be sure you tell your friends and family about the podcast. They'll save some money and some grief, probably, and you'll be a hero, right? Those of you who'd like some written material to carry with you when you're out there shopping, get a copy of The Informed Buyer from Amazon Kindle or Barnes & Noble Nook. They'll give you the basics for quick reference when you're in the buyer process, and it costs $3. $3, yep, $3. Can't get much cheaper than that, right? We've been covering a lot of ground in the last few months, like electric vehicles, legal challenges, extended warranties, market costs, conditions of the market, in other words, yada, 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 a bunch of stuff. It's time to review some of the basics of dealing in a general sense. We kind of got away from that for a few months. Now we got to get back to just reviewing it a little bit, right? We got to review it to some degree. Yep, I'm not sure how much we should do, but we're going to do it today. We've been covering a lot of ground, right? Maybe they're rude or a little confrontational, the things I come up with, but these are the things that you need to get done or not done. Some do's and some don'ts. This is the basics we're going to go over today, are the things that apply in every situation. There's no situation where you shouldn't do these. And these should, if you're in a hurry, these might be your answer as long as you cover these bases, at least to some degree. There's nothing better than taking your time, but let's talk about what you shouldn't do and maybe even what to avoid without trying to cover the entire process in one episode. We can't. The things I'm talking about apply in every situation. Some listeners have commented that for them, the process will take them a little more time that they don't have. They want to know what tips we could give them that would be quicker to use and get them through things quicker. Well, quicker usually means more money, but it still would help to some degree. So whatever reason, job time, family time, lack of confidence, maybe my explanation wasn't thorough enough as it might have needed to be, but I don't know about speeding things up, but if you're going to limit your effort and time, then these have to happen or not happen, whatever the situation is. Number one would be never talk to a dealer about price while you're deciding what to buy. When you go out to look for a vehicle, stay away from price while you're doing that. That is really a lot more to that than it gets credit for. You think, oh, there's a nice one, let's get that one. No, that's not what you should do. You should look at all the possibilities and get a look at them all and read about them all and do some research on them all. Gather the info on each model you're considering. Maybe take notes, read the Monroney label, test drive, pick out options, colors, look for the dealership and its service department, see what they're like. Just don't talk price or deal yet. That's the thing you got to avoid. Don't answer any budget, trade-in, or finance questions from the salesperson while deciding what to buy either. Just gather info about the vehicle. They'll give you information that may throw you off course or might give you a bad piece of information, as a way to get you to come back or come into the store and sit down and talk. Don't listen to any of that stuff. Stay away from it for now. Just concentrate on picking out the right vehicle. What they remark about your circumstances might affect your effort completely, so don't do that. This is a huge mistake some people make, and many not taking the test drive before deciding what to buy. My friend has one, or a similar one, or I rode in one. No, riding is not the same as driving. That's a huge mistake people make sometimes, is they don't drive a vehicle before they buy it. And you should not only drive it, you should go up the highway, up a hill, down a hill. How's the back seat fit? Do the options cover your needs? I've had numerous emails from people trying to figure out what to do after buying a vehicle that they didn't test drive, and now they're stuck with it. And there's really not much you can do. You bought it. They can't give you your money back at your used vehicle then just because you didn't pay enough attention, didn't take the time to test drive. That's crazy. That's one of those things that has to get done. No ifs, ands, or buts. Never buy without considering the resale value, brand reputation, and consider options like 8-foot box on a pickup truck. The things that add to the value, right? Or whether you're getting a luxury vehicle, leather upholstery, if you're going to, get power windows and power door locks and cruise control, how much that adds to the resale, and it does. Because people are used to that now. I mean, that's just the way it is. Power windows, power door locks, cruise control, a lot of that stuff comes on a vehicle whether you ask for it or not. Another one, don't shop without knowing your terms, your budget, your down payment, your trade payoff, how much you owe on your trade, book prices on your trade. What's the book say it's worth? What's your monthly payment target? Those are the things that you want to know about, right? That's what I'm saying. You got to know what that is. Another one, after picking out a vehicle and which dealer is your first choice as far as service, never go on to negotiate without having obtained out-the-door prices and lease payments from 3 or 4 internet departments from other dealers, something to compare. So you got sea legs when you go in, right? So you got to know you have some area to where it's somewhere around somewhere, right? How could you possibly know where you are on a deal without knowing the market? If time is an issue, try calling a few and see if you can get it over the phone. Never tell a dealer you're paying cash. Boy, that's a big one. Don't ever do that. You think that a lot of people go in and they'll say, I'm paying cash. What's the best price? That doesn't make any difference to them. That's bad news. A lot of times we're trying to impress them, and that's not impressing them. That just makes them think they're not going to make any money. You absolutely have to tell them at some point, but it should only be after price has been settled. Dealers count on finance department income, and they consider that finance department income when they're talking about price on a new vehicle. So if they know they're not going to make anything in the finance department, you're not financing with them, you're buying any extra options and stuff, well, they're going to make more on the front end then. They're not going to give you there's not as much room to move. They anticipate that F&I income, so don't tell them any of that stuff until you absolutely have to. It doesn't always help the price. It can usually, it always does, but not always. Keeping that fact that you're paying cash and unknown will never hurt the deal. So if it didn't help it, that's one thing, but it could never hurt it. So why take the chance, right? Never tell a dealer your shopping price when you request a quote. Never say that. I want your best price. Oh, boy. It's like calling a bluff or spitting in their eye. It just starts the engine of their dancing, right? They'll avoid your answer as much as possible. The price quote is for budget consideration with your spouse and your family. Could you give me a price so I can talk to my family on how that's going to work, blah, 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 blah? That's different than, give me your best price. You're never going to get their best price, ever. Going out to deal and you have not shopped interest rates or available terms or local banks, that's got to be done prior to talking to the dealer about the deal. Always 3 or more banks and credit unions. Always know where you stand. In person, and if time is tight, by phone, but always do it somehow. Always have that information when you go into the dealer. Going into or calling the banks having not obtained your credit score, get your credit score. Always know where you stand. There's a million places online to get your credit score. Some credit cards, like, what is it? Trying to think of some of them that have the credit score on them. A lot of cards are starting to add that to their bank account, to your bank account, and to your credit score, and to your credit card companies. And I think that it's an easy thing to get. There's Credit Karma and Credit.com, and there's all kinds of places you can go. It's not something that's a bunch of work to get handled. Going in or calling the banks having not obtained your credit score is why it's so important. You got to do that before you call the bank. Going into deal without obtaining pricing info, complete quotes, book prices, regardless of new or used. So when you're going in to go talk price with a dealer, you got to know what the MSRP is, where you need to be on MSRP. But on your own vehicle, you need to know what's the book say about your vehicle. What if used car dealers? Hopefully, at least, you haven't gone into some, you've at least called a few and gotten to figure what they're going to pay you. That's the wholesale value. You need to know that before you go in, not after. After doesn't make any difference. There's nothing you could change. Never accept a loan from a dealer or a bank without shopping the available terms from 3 or 4 other banks. So if you go into your bank and they give you a deal, always shop some other ones. Before you even go in, I would shop some. You'd be surprised. It's like you got a friend in the business, right? In the car business. Before you go into your friend, because you want to buy from your friend or your family member, go shop the price and don't tell them you did it. and then take the pricing you get and then go in to get price from them and see what happens. Boy, you'll be shocked. I'm telling you, 9 out of 10 times you'll be shocked. Negotiating payment without knowing all the factors that cause the payment, like the months, the rate, the amount financed, the required down payment, or verifying that the payment is ODD out the door, there's no other secrets. That's paramount when you're negotiating with the dealer. That should get quoted with every payment you get. That's why I call it, right? CPI, complete payment information. The months, the rate, the amount financed, the required down payment in order to get that amount financed. That's important. Or if you're getting a price, everything, all the factors in it. I talk about it at the end of every show. OTD. Another one, allowing a dealer to run your credit before you've made a deal. Don't let them fool you. They have to run your credit until a deal is made. That's bull. Usually, each time you run your credit, it affects your score. But secondly, your credit score might affect their attitude towards you, especially if it's a low score. And it will affect their attitude. If you have gotten your beacon score, credit value, and you can tell them, but only if necessary. Well, look, my beacon score is this, so you don't need to run my credit. That's it, this score. You want to negotiate or don't you? Sometimes you have to tell them, okay, pound salt, get up and leave. You got to be ready to do that. There are some jerks out there. Some people that they want to be right. They don't want to sell a vehicle. They just want to be right. Another one is allowing the lack of service records to stop you from buying a used vehicle you like. I would never do that. Service records are nice, right? You know how the person serviced it. But who keeps service records? I never have. Get the facts the right way. Auto check, Carfax. Have a tech look at it. Buy from a reputable dealer. Those things will determine what they are better than service records. And who's to say the service records are real? I mean, that's what I'm saying. I don't think it would make any difference. Now, there are factory records that they keep, like Mercedes-Benz keeps a record on the vehicle that's being serviced at Mercedes-Benz dealers. So that record that dealer can give to you with no cost for it. And every Mercedes-Benz has that record at some level. Never finance long-term unless you absolutely have to, or your budget. Long-term makes it hard and sometimes impossible to trade. Minus equity, all those things. Later, you'll be doing major maintenance while paying payments. So don't go long-term. Keep your payment as short as you can possibly deal with. Never buy any used car without a Carfax or an auto check. Never. Never sign anything without reading at least the bold points and any numbers on it, what they call the Fed box on a bank contract. Read all the numbers. Take the time. Don't rush through it. I'm in a hurry. I got to get back to... No, you're never too hurried to do that. I'm telling you. Never accept any promise that's not in writing, signed by the dealer. So if they tell you, yeah, we'll take care of that later on, or we'll fix that dent when you come back in for certain. No, write it on the buyer's order and have the dealer sign it, the manager. And if they were legit and meant to do it, they won't get mad. The ones that get irritated over that are the ones that never plan on doing it to begin with. Never talk about your trade value unless you settled on a price for the new one, or the trade is an imperative part of the price, as in the case of upside down. I would stay away from the trade. I would deal in the vehicle first and then the trade. I've talked about that a million times on the show if you can. Otherwise, settle the new deal, then talk about the trade, right? That's important. It gives you two ways to move. And that's the nice thing about it, is that if you talk about it separately, you get two chances to better your deal and put the price in your favor. If you do negotiate all at one time, take into consideration the facts that you can come up with that make the deal work. Don't just look at, okay, we're dealing on the trade, not, we'll deal on a new one, and whatever they give you for the trade is your trade. You know what the books said there. You still shop the used car dealers. You still get the information. You separate that in your mind. You separate the price in your mind. You can figure them all into one, but you still separate them. You got to get a good idea if you're upside down. That would be true. So you got to add. So if they're going to give you a payment without your trade and you're upside down $1,000, you know that your payment's going to be $20 a month more than they tell you, because they don't know yet that you're upside down because you haven't brought up your trade. Another one, never accept any trade offer without having done the due diligence. In other words, you go into a dealer, you're looking around, you get talked into one, and you see the vehicle, you really like it, and they offer you trade value, and don't say yes, no matter what. Check the books, get your own closeout. If you can shop your trade to get numbers from other dealers like major used car dealers, do it. If not in person, preferably at least do it by phone, but do it. Don't buy without doing that, ever. There's no excuse for that. Never buy a used vehicle, truck, car, bike, motorhome older than 1 year with more than 15,000 miles on it without having it checked out by a tech you've hired yourself, a tech that works for you. This is in addition to the Carfax, not in lieu of the Carfax. You get both. The Carfax, which the dealer will give you if it's a dealer anyway, they're only $15 if you buy from one. But as far as the tech, hire your own tech because they catch things that Carfax doesn't think about. If the brakes are right on the edge, you need to know it. If you got 6/10 or 7/10 of brake shoes left, you want to know. You don't have to do the brake shoes till they're 5/10? I think it is. Well, it's going to be soon. So you might tell the dealer, hey, look, the guy tells me the shoes or brakes on this are borderline. And no car dealer is going to lose a deal over something like that. They'll just put new brakes on it. Never be afraid or intimidated so that you can't walk on in a deal. That's what I was talking about. If they don't want to give you, they don't want things to go your way. They don't want to give you the information you asked for. Just get up and leave. I'm telling you, there's a lot of fish in the sea. You don't have to worry about that. Their whole attitude will change. You can tell them that you start showing signs of that. Never tell the F&I department you don't want anything. A lot of guys are going, I don't want nothing. Just give me do the paperwork. Listen to the products. They may be important, but if you want something like rust-proof or gap insurance, shop the price before you go in so you know what you're talking about. But don't just say, no, I don't want any of your products, because if you settle on a payment, you might have something you really are concerned about, road hazard because of the road you drive on particularly, or on the way to work, or there might be something like paint sealant. They give you a special deal on it. I see Consumer Report said, don't get paint sealant. Well, those guys they don't know who Pat shot at. Believe me. Paint sealant's a great investment for a vehicle, especially protecting the paint when you go back. If you've did really, real paint sealant, when you go back to trade it in, it's going to add to the value. I guarantee you. It's not something where you can look at a book and say, this is paint sealed, so here's what we add. No, it's just going to look better. And when it looks better, car dealers are just like individuals. If it looks better, they're going to give you more, period. That's the way it works. But when you go in there to sit down with the F&I department, always ask them for the payment again. That's another way of checking on payment packing, because if he gives you a payment that's not right, later on, he can't back out of it saying they made a mistake. So he will. He'll give you the real payment. That's a good way to check on the, payment packing, which takes place everywhere in the country, every day. Never pay any attention to dealer advertising. Boy, that's a 3 times thing. Never, ever. Get your numbers in writing on the net, out the door. One thing you can pay attention to as far as advertising is that the dealers with large disclosures in the paper or radio, you hear the radio ad and the first half sounds like me and the second half sounds like somebody going, you know that they're disclosing a lot of things they don't want you to know. That's why they disclose them at the end. It's the same in the paper. The why they put it in small print at the bottom is because they don't want to bring it up. Well, that says something about them, doesn't it? Doesn't that tell you about their integrity? Well, they'll say, well, we're just trying to compete with the other guys. Well, competing with the other guys is no excuse. That's not how it works. If you want a guy that tell you the real truth, you want guys that talk about the things that are important. The car's important, the truck's important, but not as important as how it's going to go for the next 5 years. What's the dealership like? What do they talk about? And they go, what do they do to make you happy after you buy? Never accept any price or offer that is not OTD. Price, tax, fees, options, everything. A lot of times the dealers say, well, we'll take $20,000 plus the fees. Well, what fees? Well, they could make up their own fees then, couldn't they? Sure they could. $20,000 plus, the tax. Yeah, okay, the tax, then you got what? Well, there was options. You got to have those options too, and they start adding things. You want out the door price. You want everything. Always get a price with everything. If they won't give you a price with everything, well, it's not a real price. All that matters is what's in writing. Hearing mistakes are made by everybody, every day. No, it's what's in writing that counts. Never feel obligated to buy from a dealer or a particular salesperson because they spent time with you. That's just doing their job. Never, ever feel obligated about that. They'll try to make you feel obligated about it, right? So they can create some loyalty to them so that they can sell you. Never take delivery without checking it properly. Equipment, damage, new or used. When you go to pick the vehicle up, walk around it. Make sure it's the same as it was. Read the window sticker on a new vehicle. Compare the serial number on the window sticker to the serial number on the car. That sounds stupid, but it happens all the time. People get the wrong car, the wrong serial number. It happens. Or they think they got something, they made a deal on a XLE and they ended up getting an LE. Well, wait a second, that's not what the deal was. You wouldn't know that if you're not checking when you pick it up. And later on, guess what? Too late. Nope, if you don't do it before you leave, that's the end of that. Here's another one. Yeah, I know you get a lot of advertising about this, and there's people who'll tell you it's okay, but I'm telling you it isn't. Never, ever buy a vehicle online. It just adds a mouth to feed, and there are too many variables as it is. But, just the other day I was listening to an ad from Carvana, I think it was. And they were talking about how you could pick up the car at the local dealer. I'm thinking to myself, there's my point. They're not really selling it. They're just a salesman in the middle. It's just another mouth you're feeding on the deal. Don't bother with that stuff. Don't buy anything online that you don't have to. I'm telling you. Well, look at what's going on. Look what goes on when you go to Amazon. Amazon's a good company. I've bought a lot of stuff from Amazon, but I've also gotten a lot of junk from Amazon. They don't know everything that's going on with their products. And they make it right with you. They'll take it back and all that stuff. But you know what? That still took extra time. It still was aggravating. And with a car deal, it's really aggravating. Never go out to buy without considering your time advantages. What time of the month, right? What day of the week, the hours, the weather, the time of year. Stop and think about it, Give me an example. Let's say it's the 27th and you're going to go out and buy a car. Can you wait till the 30th or the 1st? If you can wait, I would. No question about it. And if I was going out to buy tomorrow, let's say, I'd say, well, let's see, what's a good time to go tomorrow? 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I think, is a good time. It is. Read the facts about electric vehicles before you consider one. We just went over that last week. I had to put that in a list because it is important, but my advice to you is to avoid electric until it improves dramatically. That might be 50 more years. They've already been 200 years. Most people don't ever read about it. They just go out and buy one because they think, well, they say they wouldn't be on the news if they weren't okay. Yes, they would be. Yes, the left would push those no matter what. And electric vehicles, all these things are coming to a head. And we're finding about climate change. And, as scientists now are able to come to the surface without getting their head blown off or something, I'm telling you, stay away from those things. Don't, listen to one of the podcasts and give you the real reasons. And then when you go in someplace, see if they can come up with answers against those reasons. They won't have any. That's the way it is. There are market don'ts based on the current market conditions, and there are market do's. But if you can wait until the market straightens out, then wait. Another thing I read this week, an article, I've read it a lot lately, was that last year, or in 2021, which would be a year, 2 years ago, year and a half ago, used car prices in 1 year went up 38%. A $10,000 vehicle was now $14,000. And they haven't got the figures in for this year. I think it's a little bit less. I think they're up maybe 25 or 28%. They're still way more than they should be. And if you can wait, it's always better. If you have to buy now, well, then you got to consider a low-priced used vehicle to hold you over from an individual. Buy a vehicle from an individual so that you can go according to what the value is, not according to what dealers are doing. Follow the program and trade in when the market corrects. That's what I would do. That's what I'm doing now. I didn't buy another vehicle when my lease came up. No. I bought out my lease vehicle because it was so much under the current used car price. I just kept that, and when things turn around, then I'll get another lease. You got to remember, leasing, you'd think, well, why does that cost more? Because they don't have any, and they're charging over sticker, and most leasing companies don't even want to talk to you about leasing a vehicle because they won't lease a vehicle for over sticker. Over sticker? No. It doesn't work for them. That makes their risk more, so they have to charge a higher rate. Follow the program and trade in when the market corrects. As an added info, what are the do's and don'ts for leasing? Well, there's a few for that specifically. Always establish the mileage per year in advance to getting payments, and always check it constantly during the deal. It's better to build what you will use in rather than wait until the end. So if you're really going to drive 15,000 miles a year, build that in. Most leases are based on 12,000 miles a year average driving, but they have specials all the time where you'll see, here, this 39-month lease for such and such a month, and then you have to read the fine print, and it says, yeah, well, the mileage is only 8,000 miles a year. You want a lease based on 12,000 miles a year. That would be the national average driver, and most leases are built that way. But when they have specials, they do little tricks. That's what I'm talking about. That's what we're trying to avoid. If you're going to go over, just build it in now. It costs a little less that way. Get 2 or 3 dealers for a price. Make sure all payment quotes are on delivery. Out the door. Best to negotiate with nothing on delivery except the first payment. So sign and drive is always the best way to negotiate. You can change that if you want to, but negotiate that way, and that way everybody's working on the even ground and you can compare much easier. Best to lease with no down payment equity, right? Upside down doesn't matter on a lease. It's not your problem, so you don't have to worry about at the end of the lease being upside down. Leases have built-in gap insurance, and they should be shorter term. Never lease longer than 36 months, in my opinion, ever. I never have, ever. Opens up to maintenance, wear, repair bills, anything. When you go over 36 months, there's a million things that are going to happen. Avoid it. Yep, keep it at 36 months. You think, well, the payment's a little higher that way. Okay, so the payment's a little higher, but you know what? You get a new car sooner. In 10 years, you'll have 4. The average buyer in 10 years has 2. Know about any charges at the end. Make sure that's disclosed to you. Read the numbers boxes on the contract. Make sure you can buy it for the residual value. Ask. Find out if they're going to allow you to sell it or trade it yourself in with other dealers. Most aren't now. Their attorney general's working on getting that changed, but it's not changed yet. Find that out, because that can cost you a lot of money. The average, in fact, the attorney general told me, one of the people in the attorney general's office told me that they were estimating those costs at, it costs people $4,000 to $5,000 the way they change things. Every single lease. They're going to pay it back. You watch. They're going to lose this battle, and they're going to pay all that money back, and they shouldn't have changed it to begin with. It was very dishonest. It was collusion. They all did it at the same time. Know that residual value at the end. That's important. Know that stuff. Make sure you can buy it for that. The last thing to talk about as far as what to do is that if you get in a tough situation, you have a problem, never give up. You may have been cheated or conned or swindled or sold a bad vehicle with deception involved. You can't get the help you need from the Better Business Bureau, from the State Attorney General. Remember, you have the FTC and the UDAAP, who has those UDAP statutes that can almost override the law. They're so powerful. Don't give up. Don't let the dealers fool you into giving up. Doesn't happen very often, but there are some out there that you got to be careful of. And sometimes it happens with a dealer and they didn't mean it to happen. But normally, if that's the case, they'll make it right with you. The dealer that holds out and doesn't want to make it right with you, chances are they're doing that with everybody. What all this list tells you is that with a little bit of work, just a little bit, it can be very effective. Doing all these things on this list, or making sure that you didn't do some of the things on this list, can save you thousands. The average consumer. That's not a little amount of money. It's a big amount of money. Well, that's Deal Talk for the week. If you have a question, or request, or even a comment, please call or email me. Callers, it's 407-801-4071. That's 407-801-4071. Leave a message and I'll call you back. I won't be answering that phone, but you will get a call back soon. Or email dealtalkatpodcast@gmail.com or dealtalk@mail.com. Please don't forget to tell your friends and your family about the podcast. You'll be helping them save money, possibly big money, and do yourself a favor by getting a copy of The Informed Buyer from Amazon or Nook. It's $3. Go to Amazon, put it on your laptop, or you can put it on your iPad or your phone. You'll be glad you spent the $3. It only takes a minute. You'll be very happy. However I can help you, contact me and you'll hear from me. And remember, every payment you get should be CPI, complete payment information. The amount, the month, the rate, any required down payment to get to those terms, not on just the first payment quote, but every single time they quote you a payment, and every cash price you get should be all in, every single cost required to buy the vehicle. The tax, the payments, the dealer fee, the aftermarket options, everything. That's called OTD, out the door.